Hello, this is VK3 Alpha Mike Lima in Burwood East. Chris on the mic. And we usually have a half hour's worth of replays to fill the time between now and starting a crossband session, 11 p.m, where we'll be talking full duplex between this frequency 147.475 and a talk-in frequency on 70 centimetres 439.225. That's for anybody who's interested and has receiving facilities for 2 metres transmitting for 70 sems, 439.225 megahertz on the 70 centimetre band. The preliminary material I've got tonight is very old by my standards. This will be introduced by my predecessor with my call sign, the late Tony Sanderson. I had, Prue and I had dinner with Tony's widow 2 days ago to commemorate the 20th anniversary of Tony's passing in June 2006. And back in the early 1980s, Tony was compiling tapes that survived of transmissions from his place going back to about 1968. The tape that I'm going to play tonight dates from December 1975. It was an interesting period, was broadcast on, I think, 1825 kilohertz AM, where we were talking from Tony's place, 23 Park Street, Elstonwick. A whole group of us were in Tony's shack, myself, Mark Mercer, VK3AML, and Tony. And we were talking to Clem, the original VK3 Delta Zulu. The 3DZ is now a call held by Nigel Holmes, the former programming manager for Radio Australia, and a very nice bloke he is. December 1975 was an interesting time. The Whitlam government had just been sacked a matter of weeks before this contact. They had announced that community radio would be starting. I had already done 6 months' worth of programming on the ABC's Access Radio experimental station 3ZZ, and concluded that, and we had heard about this new proposal for a community consortium station to be called 3CR Community Radio. And the little that we knew about it, we discussed on this contact nearly 51 years ago. So I'll leave it to Tony to introduce this. I should explain that at the time, 160 metres was the chat band that 2 metres has since become. And in those days, the usual thing for listeners was to tweak a broadcast receiver, fiddle about with the oscillator coil and the antenna trimmer to extend the frequency of coverage of an average mantle radio from 1600 kilohertz up to 1850, and then be able to receive 160 metres AM, which Tony took great pains to transmit with good quality. And so I take you back 51 years to December 1975.
Okay, follows, says he, reducing the microphone gain. Another compilation tape of 160 metre crossband. We'll call it Gold Series episode 10, I think. Mainly because it will contain some stuff which is fairly old, and not much of the old stuff exists. So just as much as for the fact that it's old stuff and a bit rare, as for the fact that it's, whatever interest it might have, we'll call it Gold Series episode 10. This particular compilation that I'm running off now onto this tape was prompted by a tape that Daryl gave me, Daryl Cosway, otherwise known as the Braithwaite. which he originally recorded on a cassette back in 1975. It's since been dubbed off twice onto reel-to-reel. So what we have here on my tape now will be a fourth generation, which originally started on a cassette. So there may be some funny sort of jumps where we do edits in the middle, because at various times, unfortunately, the tape that Daryl supplied tends to go like this and do rather funny things because the speed of the cassette went a bit mad. Anyway, I'm not quite sure what we'll follow it up with, but it'll probably be sort of equally ancient other stuff from 160. We might put some really old stuff on from back in 1970. After this dubbing, which, as I said, was from around December 1975, as supplied by, as recorded by Daryl. The contact has VK3DZ, Clem, and Mike 3LT, and even Dave's there. Dave had his licence by this time, 3ASE. Contact taking place on 1825. And also in the shack at this end I had Mark 3ZMM, double mic that is, and the long VK3 Chris. So first of all, as I say, that one from a tape as supplied by Daryl.
But it's sort of everybody's right, and it's hasn't been allowed before. It should be everybody's right to have access to the airwaves, virtually on the basis that amateurs have access to the airwaves, I suppose. In arguing for things like double Z, you should really be arguing for the fact that amateurs should have exactly the same rights as broadcasters like double Z, because airwaves are part of the, or a portion of the frequency should be set aside for use by the public, and that, I suppose that should include amateurs, for any purpose non-commercial that they like.
And that's the Mark Mercer, VK3ZMM. I believe he's up bush these days. Don't know whether he has a licence. You occasionally see him at Hamfest. But back to Mark.
Political broadcasting, or be it putting over the weirdest and most untruthful things in the world. It's just that those airwaves exist, and those airwaves just belong to the people.
So I stick to my point that I am not interested in RF.
That's me. And at that time I wasn't interested in RF because I was too busy building long-distance light beam systems with people like my friend Roland Legg, now a policeman, and with the egg for a while at this stage, I think. Back to the recording.
And I'm afraid that's all there is to it. And that is an opinion I'm expressing, and I expect it to be...
That's me, aged 20.
...taken as an opinion and not as a thing I'm trying to force down people's throats.
And talking about considering making things complex, Clem, I'm afraid we are basically extremely complex type of being. To deny a complexity is not thinking on a very high level at all. You can be the sort of beer guzzler and swiller at the local pub and think at a very low level, but why should you want to drag everybody else down to the low level that a number of people in this country try to do? Even just considering, say, a political situation, you can think of it on a huge number of levels. This not just being inputted on, you're not just receiving inputs from the broadcast media, from the newspapers and that, you're getting opinions, and the opinions you put various weights to. There's virtually nothing in the environment that isn't taken into your brain and considered, and some relevancy given to it, Clem. So you really cannot say that we're not a complex being. There's huge number of factors involved in making a decision, even on what looks like a simple thing, like a political decision. And not all of them will be necessarily logical, but they all have a weight. So, and the other thing is, how do you tell what is truth? The truth
Yes.
Is you can do some of these Greek sort of things that you can do the theories of truths and theories of logic and that, but as far as we're concerned in the working sort of thing, the only way that we test the truth is by a general opinion, really, testing it against other people and seeing by the reaction that comes back whether they really express the same opinion as you. And so truth really can be a variable quantity. It seems to be that truth is the general opinion held by the community, as tested by itself.
But is truth definable in any other terms than those terms that VK3AML working the group?
We haven't got time.
Truth. The two things, truth and time, I think, are two basic indefinables, as the Oxford Dictionary states them. So, anyway, might get Clem's ideas on that when it's his next time round.
The other thing about treading on toes, well, we tread on toes all the time, but we mask what we tread on toes. We encode everything up into a rather complex method of how we do it, and we disguise treading on toes and insulting people. But if you look at things, then it's it's not that easy, but it is possible to decode the real meanings of most types of conversation and actions, because again, we're a complex being, and we code things down to slightly simpler but more disguised versions of what actually we mean. So that's about all the comments on your comments, Clem. So we might put it across to Mike for his comments. VK3LT in the group, VK3AML.
Guys there. Sorry, we're letting you have a bit there, right? Truth and time, right? Yeah, that figures. Yeah, that's good.
This is Michael Ross, VK3LT of that time, still around. He's in the manufacturing industry now. Back to the tape.
Just have a listen to this and see what you reckon. I'll click the mic way down. And press the up to the mic.
Boy, was there something wrong with his modulation.
What does that do? Right, the IML,
Yes, Mike. It sounded, when you turned the gain down, it sounded as if you'd probably extended your frequency response to about 150 hertz, but I don't think much further.
That's me.
The comment by the chief engineer of the station was that you successfully wiped out all your highs and there is nothing below 200 hertz. So you may need more work on that situation there, Michael.
So I'll throw it back to Mike, and Mike can throw it back to Dave. VK3 AML with the group is listening.
Can I come in just for a minute? VK3 AML in the group from VK3DZ. Now, Mark said that we have to mask, I think the word was mask, and disguise things. Now, this is the sort of thing that's been going on for centuries. It's not new. And believe you me, I'm not against anyone. I think I might have been a bit sharp in my comments on, what's his name, Chris? I think he fired one at me and I fired one back, but that's forgotten. He didn't think that I'd interpret it as I did, and I don't know whether anyone else did interpret it as I did. masking and disguise. We've got to disguise things. Now, that's what you said, Mark, wasn't it? Disguise things. Now, of course, we've always done this. I'll admit that. And we've got used to it. We've grown up with this sort of thing. And I think this is a great problem. We're disguising things of politicians and union leaders and people, anyone, me, if you like. We're trying to disguise something. Isn't that the whole crux of the business? I believe it is. But believe you me, I'm not dogmatic on anything. I do, you know, I really enjoy a conversation like this. Pushing that needle hard over too. No, I think disguise. We're living in a world of make-believe and pretense. And as Mark said, he stated it. We have to mask our conversation. And then someone else said, well, why shouldn't we talk about what we like on the air? Well, I suppose that's correct too. That's quite correct, but then if we do, I think the people in charge, we'll call them that, I don't know who they are, consider themselves the righteous body or something, and we mustn't say these things. I think we're coming to the point where I can see, I can quite clearly see the young people these days, they want to express themselves, they want to say something, but I don't think, as Mark said, they want to disguise anything. Let us come out in the open with it. You know, it's like a boil or a bad sore or something. If it's festering all the time, it gets worse and worse, but if we, I suppose I'm talking about exactly the same thing as what you're talking about, actually.
You really wouldn't know, though. Anybody who thinks this is BS is probably completely correct, but at least it's historic BS now, and that was dear old Clem 3DZ. This is coming to you from VK3AML. We're going to go to crossband, talk-in frequency 439225 in approximately 12 minutes.
Let it come out in the open. It's difficult, I mean. It wouldn't be... yes, it has become complex, obviously. It's become complex because we've all been living in a little world of pretense all the time. Now, I suppose I'm talking exactly the same language that you're talking now. We have to live in a world of pretense. We dare not say what we felt. So this is the big problem. You see, now Mark sort of criticised me and what I was saying, but we're both talking the same language, actually. Maybe I didn't express it too well, but we're both absolutely talking the same language. The same thing happens in Parliament, though I suppose they're both talking the same language. But
it's probably all drivel, but anyway.
Due to the emotional or possessive problem or power or something, they begin to argue with each other. So it becomes complex. As soon as you argue with someone else, you can go on to great complexities. But I think I've got a bit above that. Like, you know, Mark said, well, I'm talking about this, that and the other, and yeah, I agree with him, but I said it in a different way. It's very interesting, this. You see, people can think in exactly the same way, but due to their, I suppose, emotions, they want financial gain. other petty little things which don't matter really. Yes, I can see it all. I think the best thing to do now is, you know, if people want to bathe in the nude, we'll let them. If they want to express something over the air which is political, we'll let them go ahead and say something, and then we're beginning to get somewhere. We can express our views and we can talk about it, not argue about it, but talk about it. And I think this is the only means of progress, actually. But I wonder, is it too late? You know, you see all these things happening around the world, this crime and people killing each other and all that sort of thing. It's all political, or money, or whatever their hang-up is, or their hassle or something. And they shouldn't be doing this. We've seen it in Ireland, we've seen it in Vietnam. So, yeah, I think you got a point there, Mark. I can see it now, I can see it. But, of course, the powers to be will sort of try and clamp down on expressing your mind or your own opinion. I'd love to express my mind, actually. I've held it back for years, you know, but...
Say that again.
I think it'd be great to say what you thought and
oh dear,
for no one to take any offence at it. I think it'd be great. Because the reason it'd be great, because we'd all benefit from it and get somewhere. I don't know whose turn it was. We'll put it back to the Master of Ceremonies, Tony, and he can switch it on. AML and the group and VK3DZ.
VK3DZ, VK3AML in the group.
Is it on?
Yep.
Yes, it is on. Hello, we have not got a green light, so we must be okay. The meter is moving. Yeah, sorry, Clem, you must have got the wrong impression from what I meant by disguise. I didn't mean
Don't worry, Dave, you'll be in
disguise. I meant it is typical of a complex human that you can't really put stuff across in a basic form. That you must disguise it, if you like. But I mean,
Even he couldn't keep a straight face.
yes. By that I meant that you must. You're breaking me up, Mr. Chris Long. But I didn't mean deliberate disguising. I just meant that if I thought if I didn't like you, I would not normally come out and say you're an absolute Richard Head or something, would I? I would disguise the fact. we have things. Okay, Mr. ASC is getting very put off. I think Mr. ASC wants to talk.
He's tapping on his bench. He's getting
tapping
heated.
on his bench. He's tapping his microphone.
His heater's getting heated.
That I wouldn't come straight out and call you that, and you wouldn't like me for calling you that, would you? So I would disguise it. We're just going to leave the phone off the hook. So I'd disguise it in such a form that it wasn't a direct insult to you, just apart from being the politeness of it. That if you're a thinking person, you soon get onto the gist that I don't like you, and that you take the point, disappear off. So that's what I meant, Clem. Not that there's deliberate types of disguising. There is that as well, but it just is a typical thing of a human being such a complex thing that disguised forms of communication are typical of a human. We'll just put it across to Mr. VK3ASC, VK3AML, listening for your call, David.
Yeah, VK3AML, VK3DZ, VK3LT, VK3ASC returning. On 1825 kilohertz, no less. Just turn down the gain there. Yeah, we had quite an interesting discussion, I must say. Let's turn up my monitor louder.
Cancel that frequency. It's 1840 most likely.
Hang on, let's put this on there. You're interesting, you're talking about all these radio stations, and it certainly seems there is a need for some community radio station so that people can just walk into the studio and have a little talk, play the music they like, then walk out again, because it seems that what's happening these days is that the local amateurs on 160 metres, well, they're halfway in the middle of a QSO and they hear on the door, and they're obliged to open up their radio station so all these people can walk in and give all their opinions over their station, and then when they walk out again, it's Mr. Silvers doesn't give the people who've walked in and given their ideas over the air, he doesn't give them a bluey, but gives the licensee of the station. So I think that we certainly do need some sort of radio stations to fulfil these needs.
Contact with 3AML, 3LT, 3DZ, 3ASC and CDL. And I recorded it on the 4th of December, one early evening, in 1975 from St Kilda Road.
And that was the late Darryl Cosway, who died, unfortunately, of a respiratory complaint in 1991, so he's been gone a good deal of time too. And if you thought that was a load of BS, you were probably extremely accurate, but that's the way we used to fill in our Saturday nights. That was probably about 1 a.m. at Tony's place. We used to frequently sit there drinking coffees or the amber fluid until 3 a.m, talking about this, that and the other thing, as you could tell. And sometimes the amber fluid took over and we descended into semantics such as you've just heard. Talk about a wasted youth. VK3 Alpha Mike Lima. This is the present VK3 Alpha Mike Lima from Burwood East with a tape by the old 3AML. As you could tell, we used to gather at Tony's place in reasonable numbers, particularly on Saturday nights. Tony's mother was a bit of a dragon. You didn't knock on the front door because his mother would come to the front door. "Oh, you want to see Tony? I suppose it's really important." She didn't like amateur radio. She didn't like people who were interested in radio. She wanted nothing to do with radio. So most of us used to crawl along the side fence very quietly, climb over the side gate, and then tap on Tony's Radio Shack window. You'd put a hand up and Tony would pull you up in through the window. And on one occasion I remember crawling over the side fence, and as I crawled over the top of the gate there was a cracking noise and the fence support gave way, carrying me down into the next door neighbour's house on top of the dog's kennel. Woof woof, woof woof. This is about 2 a.m. So Tony and I sat at the shack window talking to each other, and Tony said, "Discuss this with me, but keep your voice up so that the neighbour can hear." "Hey Chris," he says, what is it about dogs that's the same as chooks?" And I said, "I don't know, Tony, what is it about dogs that's the same as chooks?" And meanwhile, woof woof, woof woof is going on next door, underneath the collapsed fence. And Tony yells out the window, "Well, they're like chooks because they never shut up till you chop their heads off." And with that you hear the neighbour creaking open the back door. Get inside, he says to the dog. So that's the sort of Saturday nights we used to have about 1975. And now I'll try to open up on 70 centimetres on 439225, he said.
Channel mode.
And that's the giveaway that I'm using a Baofeng as a receiver. Are you there, Peter? VK3ACZ, VK3AML.
I am, Chris, VK3AML, VK3ACZ, and a quick reception report for your broadcast. Your strength 9 in the Hunter Valley, VK2GGC. Your strength 5 in Melbourne, up in New Zealand. I've just found out that
Holy moly!
The Christchurch SDR is no good because you're not readable at all. And your strength 8 on Ironstone Range. Mind you, it's not quite on the frequency or the mode that you're transmitting on. It happens to be 1825 AM.
Oh.
Who would have thunk it?
They've shifted a little in the last 50 years. And hello to 3ZH if he's listening.
And doing a very good job, I might add, too.
It sounds like it, Steve. Bit of news before we go to talk about reception reports. I got a phone call this afternoon from Steve Langley, 3SL. And he said, "You've come to mind, Chris." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "It's because of where I'm standing." I said, "Where are you standing?" He said, "I'm on the parapet of the lighthouse at the southern tip of Wilson's Promontory. And I'm looking out across Bass Strait. It's dead clear. It's very calm. It's actually reasonably warm up here today. I thought it was better there than it is here." And he said, "I was looking across at Deal Island. It's very clear on the horizon, and was thinking of our time over there." I said, "Well, that's very interesting." I said, "Make sure you take a lot of photographs and perhaps a bit of video. I'd be interested to see the interior of the light station." I said, "How much does it cost you from national parks to stay there?" And he said, "Shh, my wife is not to know." Anyway, over to you, Peter, VK3ACZ. Oh, he passed on regards to the group too. He listens to the crossbands, but usually is in bed with earpiece in his ear. Over to you, Pete, VK3ACZ, VK3AML.
Thank you, Chris. No doubt we'll have some others join us at some stage, so I'll make my initial report as brief as I can. First of all, the WX here tonight in the Paris end of Boronia, or is that Bosnia? Not quite as foggy as last night. We had visibility at about 50 metres last night. I can see at least 300 tonight. Of course, it might get foggier. As you were keen to remind us, 198 kilohertz closed down at midnight Zulu. Peter, good old Peter, VK3 Yankee Echo, put the last 15 minutes on his YouTube channel, which was good to see. Chris, I was filling in QSL cards today, but with great embarrassment, I found 2 Italian stations that sent me cards in 2021 and hadn't received mine in response. They slipped through to the keeper, so anyway, they'll be getting those in the mail if they're still going. I made a couple of parks contacts today. One was an interesting one, a station of VK3 140 k's north of here. I made contacts on 10 and 15 metres and some sort of crazy backscatter. What I didn't tell him is that I was listening to him on a VK6 SDR, but he was hearing me direct just. So that was interesting. And of course he was 10 over 9 on 40 metres. But my highlight of the day was falling in love with the DX station. Oh, she had a nice sounding voice. Kilo 6 Yankee Lima. Kimberley in California on a beach activating a park. So that was one of my better contacts. Anyway, that's my story. Wondering what your day has been like, and looking forward, hopefully, to others joining us. VK3AML, VK3ACZ. And good evening, VK3 Zulu Hotel.
Yeah, VK3ZH. Would you like to take it for an over?
Do that. Good evening, Chris. Good evening, Pete. And good evening, 160 metre listeners. I think there are a few out there tonight. Nice to be back, and you've done well, Pete, this weekend with your radio activities. I was a little bit excited to get your text about the K6YL, and I hastily popped over to 20 metres looking for her dulcet tones, but she'd moved on, so I missed out. But That's okay. I did work the special event station, Chris, GB198KHZ. Excuse me, I dropped the mic. I'll tell you where they were, but they were operating today, and I believe for the remainder of the weekend. I'll just bring them up on QRZ and tell you, but the special event station commemorating the closure of the longwave broadcasting at the BBC in Great Britain. So that was a bit of a highlight for me. And would you believe the very next contact that I had was, not the very next, 3 later, G0VLF, very low frequency, which had nothing to do with the medium wave broadcaster, but amusing that the call sign was there. Back to you, Chris. VK3AML, VK3ZH.
Well, I did. Thanks, Steve. 3ZH, VK3AML. I did do some listening on 198 kilohertz on various web SDRs this afternoon, and when I listened, carrier was still up, and this announcement was being made. Let's see if I can cue this. Just a moment.
You are listening to 198 kilohertz longwave. BBC Radio 4 is no longer available on this frequency. However, you can find Radio 4 many other ways. You can find BBC Radio 4 online via BBC Sounds. Radio 4 is available on DAB digital radio and through your digital television, including Freely. Radio 4 is also available via FM radio on 92 to 95 MHz and 103 to 105 MHz. Plus, you can listen via your smart speaker. Just say, play Radio 4. Information on how to listen can be found on the BBC website at bbc.co.uk/reception. You are listening.
Now, that announcement was just repeated over and over this afternoon. Now, I was very curious to see, because that 198 kilohertz is very close to the frequency that Marconi was using to transmit that first transmission across the Atlantic in 1901, to see what the 198 kilohertz sounded like on the other side of the Pacific. Now, remembering that this is a night path at that stage, I recorded 198 kilohertz from Prince Edward Island, which is in the St. Lawrence estuary, somewhat close to Newfoundland, where Marconi was, and this is what I heard.
You are listening to 198 kilohertz longwave. BBC Radio 4 is no longer available on this frequency. However, you can find Radio 4 many other ways.
And for a long time I'd been doubting that Marconi could actually get across the Pacific on those frequencies with a high-powered spark, but now that I've heard that right across the Atlantic, I'm more convinced that the old beggar did it. VK3ACZ, VK3AML.
Well, that's very impressive, Chris. I wouldn't have even thought of listening on an SDR across the pond, as they all call it. Very, very cool. And sad in another way, I was trying to remember the person who flicked the switch on Radio Australia. Now, that made it
Nigel Holmes.
Okay, that made it to a YouTube video, and I couldn't remember the details at all. I imagine there would be some nostalgia or teary moments for whoever flicks the switch on 198 kilohertz at Deutwich too.
I think we can expect some sort of a video of that, or I would expect that they would, although I was surprised that there was so little YouTube reaction to the switch off of longwave. I think I saw one very amateurish video made today with a microphone held up to the speaker, which I thought was highly unimpressive. Over to you, Steve, 3ZH, 3AML group.
Good, Chris, excellent. Well, that's very interesting. Yes, well, the special event station commemorating the BBC longwave broadcasting
is operating, I think, just for 24 hours. The RSGB and the BBC Amateur Radio Group are activating 4 special calls to mark the closure of BBC longwave transmission on 198 kilohertz, 1550 metres after more than 90 years. The longwave transmitters at Deutsch and in Worcestershire. How do you say that, Chris? Worcestershire?
It's Droitwich in Worcestershire.
Yep. West Glen near Stirling and Berghead overlooking the Moray Firth will be closed down 0 UTC on Saturday 27th of June 2026.
Isn't that corresponding to about 9 o'clock tomorrow morning?
Yes, 0 UTC.
It's 10 hours, isn't it?
No, that's already happened, hasn't it?
Well, as far as I know, they're still transmitting. I'll just check, but I think they're still transmitting that announcement that we've just heard. There was a commemorative program apparently done before they switched to that announcement. Hang on, I'll bring up, what should I do? Essex, that'll do. Pullham Market UK, and I'll dial up 198 kilohertz and see if there's anything there. If there's not, it'll be the first time they're off in nearly 100 years. They're off. They're gone.
Moment of truth.
Yes. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's not tuned there. It's tuned to 257 for some strange reason.
They wouldn't have been broadcasting during World War II, would they?
I would presume so, and it looks like there's a carrier there. Hang on, I'll bring it up.
Longwave. BBC Radio 4 is no longer available on this frequency. However, you can find Radio 4 many other ways. You can find BBC...
Yeah, the same announcement. Still going. So
How long they're going to play that?
I presume that would be switched off at either 9 or 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Is also available via FM radio on 92 to 95 megahertz and 103 to 105 megahertz.
Yeah, but it's not as impressive as burning up half a megawatt to produce the thing.
That's right, exactly.
It's an impressive piece of engineering, but, slightly wasteful in this day and age. A bit like 160 metres, really, because it used to be the general chat band when a lot of people had access to equipment to receive, but now it's kind of been relegated to a band for special use, like 6 metres. It's no longer the chat band that it was in the 70s. Well, as you could tell from that tape, there was really no time in a weekend that you could switch an AM transmitter on and not get a reply, whereas these days I think you could call CQ on AM any other time but the coffee break session and get zilch. Maybe I'm wrong, but that was my experience of 160 metres more recently. I see at that stage, just looking at the way the amateur population was distributed across Melbourne, most of us were in not very expensive accommodations, but much closer to the city. I mean, Dave was at South Caulfield, Tony was at Elstonwick, I was at Camberwell Junction, the Egg was in West Hawthorn. We were all within about 5-6 miles of each other, which is easy ground wave for 160 metres, whereas these days, because of the nature of backyards, the ability to put up a decent antenna, which tends to be in the middle or outer suburbs now, the people who are potentially on 160 to receive each other generally are much further apart. So a problem exists with ground wave. It's more difficult to link together a group distributed across large distances over Melbourne as they are now. Anyway, personal opinion. Over to you, Peter. 3ACZ, 3AML.
Yeah, 3AML, 3ACZ, and Steve, you might be interested to know that we're being heard 30 over 9 at Strathbogie SDR on the horizontal loop. I was just about to check the vertical. I find when I'm on 160 metres, I'm normally about strength 9 or a bit over on the horizontal, but 2 S points less on the vertical. So I'll see what that one is. But well done, Steve.
Thanks, Pete. Well, that'd be interesting to see how that appears. I've been listening. I actually have found, and it just might be the SDR, but I'm actually finding the audio more pleasant to listen to on Strathbogie than I am on KHZ. I wonder why that is. Listening on Ironstone is fine, but there's a bit of phase distortion with the path change. I'm hearing a bit of distortion there, and of course I can hear it also on Melbourne and New Zealand as well, although that's a little less reliable. But nevertheless, there's an 80-watt carrier on 1825 at the moment, with audio peaks of about 180 watts. So that's about as much as I'm prepared to tickle the amplifier running at 100% duty cycle.
What sort of an earth are you using, Steve?
An earth, I have 20 radial wires on the ground, between 10 and 15 metres long each. And they all spread out to the perimeter of the property, and around the perimeter, which is just a wire that sits on the bottom rail of the fence, everything is basically tied together on the perimeter wire. So it's a loop, a ground loop with wires out to reach the loop from the antenna. I've deliberately placed the antenna halfway between the two fences. It sits in the middle of the block, so I've got about 12 metres in every direction to the fence, and a bit further in some locations as well. So there's 20 radial wires plus the perimeter loop, and that's being fed with RG214 LMR400 coax, and I've got an ugly bellin, just a one-to-one sort of bellin at the bottom to decouple the RF, and there's also a ground rod, a copper rod into the ground at the base. It's 2 metres deep, and the earth is tied to that as well.
So that's the safety earth, I guess.
Peaking about 15 over on the vertical at Strathbogie.
How's the modulation up there? Are we all understandable?
Excellent.
Oh, great. Okay, well, hello to anybody on 160 metres. We now are transmitting continuously on 147.475. Talk-in is on 439.225. If anybody would like to join us, that's the frequency to talk in on. And Steve is picking up my 147.475 and relaying it to 1825. So one way or another, we seem to be covering a fair bit of southeastern Australia.
I feel we should just add some more frequencies to keep this nice and complicated. This is VK3ARD.
Hello, Matty.
G'day, Matty. Would you like to take an over?
Evening, Quiet Achiever.
Good evening, Steve, Peter and Chris. I really don't have much to add, but it is pretty cool that the 160 transmission is working so well. That's pretty impressive.
Yes, well, you know, big link up. I should have used something more significant for the opening recording. So much BS from 50 years ago.
Worth commenting to Matty that his signal's got nowhere near as much path noise as it had last night.
No, that's interesting. Have you improved things, Matty?
I have done absolutely nothing. I'm not sure if you saw, I sent you some rad V1 link.
Oh, well, yeah.
Last night, but I was listening to the raw recording of that, and that's why I was asking you about the noise on my transmission, because I was going to try a different radio, but
That one has better highs and better audio, I think.
I haven't changed yet.
Oh.
Well, it's the same one, but I was going to change to a very low-powered radio. So
Okay.
I don't think it was going to work very well. I was going to try and use the 818 for transmission.
Look, it's possible that the signal from you will vary to me from day to day because you're basically directly behind the Police Academy hill from here. So that's the problem. I'm receiving you probably totally by diffraction.
Yes.
And it depends on how wet the diffracting surface is as to how well it gets through, I think.
Yes, no, it is a. I think I said in a comment that I was doing some line of sight calculations, and I had a program that made this really nice heat map of where my signal would get to, and it was a tiny, like 20-degree slice to the south.
Oh.
and it didn't think until I went to about 10 meters that I would be able to get any signal north, because I think it's not a very big hill, but I must be just right underneath a bit of a hill that's blocking everything to the north. That's not able to bend over it a little bit. So it's, as I think I said, it's quite remarkable. It's working as well as it is.
Yeah, just as a matter of interest, Matty, can you run NBFM on 10 metres?
Yes. Yes. I think all questions. Yes, I'm allowed to, and yes, I can. Whether it would get anywhere, that's a different question.
Well, I was thinking more the increased diffraction through to here for better sig to noise. But the trouble is you go down to that frequency and industrial noise starts to become a bit of a problem. That was why I was asking about NBFM. It would have to be above 29 megs. And dodging the repeaters, of course. There's not very much activity on, so far as I'm aware, on simplex NBFM on 10, but it might be worth a try at some stage. I can certainly do that with the FT891. I've never actually done it. I've never set the thing up for NBFM, but the instruction manual says that it can.
I think I've used FM once on my radio. I think I was trying to get into RHF, into the repeater.
Yes.
I've managed a few nice DX contacts with 10 metre FM. ZL's the most common, but a few JAs. And especially with JAs, it makes you appreciate sideband.
Oh, what happens with the JAs? Does the FM screw up?
Yeah, the multipath. It's a little bit. It's all right when you've got a really strong signal happening, of course, but when it's a bit marginal, it can be a bit annoying.
Yes, when Dave used, or who was the other one that tried it? Steve 3SL tried NBFM. It was great locally, but you listen on an interstate web SDR and the multipath would make NBFM almost unintelligible. It was a really weird effect, super distorted.
About you, Steve, I'm sure you've blasted it many times before.
I'm wondering whether we should try the 160 metre FM broadcast.
No.
What do you think, Chris? Is it worth a go?
Well, I personally didn't think so, and the boys kept it up until such time, ASE and SL, until such time as they just found that on some nights there would be so much phase distortion that it would screw up. Really, the application of NBFM on 160 metres is a little bit, apart from the spread of the frequency band, there are good reasons it's not used for DX.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, let's try this for the purposes of a test. The next 10 minutes we'll switch to FM and see how it goes. And
I don't know that I can, but
we can certainly have a bit of a skirt around the SDRs and see what the result is like.
Anyway, if you'd like to try it, and can somebody relay? Otherwise, I'm up Excreta Creek. Oh dear. I've talked myself into that one.
Where am I looking? Oh, okay. I see something very big on 160.
Oh, hang on. I'll have a look there myself. And Peter, you say that it's best on Strathbogie 1, so I'll have a look at Strathbogie 1. I've never been up to that site. It sounds like a very remote part of northeast Victoria. There are parts of the Strathbogie Ranges that are really difficult to get into.
Yeah, Chris, he's 40 over at the moment on Strathbogie's horizontal loop.
1825. Oh, look at that.
And it sounds quite good too.
Hang on. Synchronous AM. Open it up to 6 kilohertz. Turn up the level control. Oh, it's
You'll
FM.
find it's FM. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Yes, after about 10 cycles, you get nothing left but resonances and distortion. Yes, novel, but it is very strong there. As you say, what is it, 20 over 9? Now it's 10 over 9, now it's 20 over 9, etc., etc. So you're getting out very nicely in that direction, Steve. That's why I asked about earthing. I think with 160 metres, the earth is 2/3 of the problem.
I think the counterpoise has a lot to do with the performance, yeah. The minimisation of the worm burning, I call it. I'm hearing a relatively nice, clean, very crisp sounding audio on Paul's SDR on narrowband FM. But when I go to anything further afield, the phase distortion is quite severe compared to AM. Pete, what are your thoughts? I'm listening on Paul's SDR right now, and that sounds very, very nice. But if I go to Strathbogie or Ironstone, it's really, really badly distorted.
Yeah, I'm on Ironstone at the moment. It's peaking 9. But, when you're in the dips, it's not so good. It sounded really good all the way through on Strathbogie horizontal loop.
Yeah, the boys went back to AM, both of them, I think, before that 160 metre activity was... Hang on, 1825. I'm now on Paul Carlstrand's setup, NBFM. Let's just turn that up. Harlow. It can go through quite a few more cycles before it gets really badly distorted there.
There's that wonderful echo again.
Yeah, well,
VK3AML, VK3ACZ.
I think that's 90% latency, and considering it's less than half a second, that's pretty good going for a web SDR. Better than I would have thought. And Steve, by the looks of it, the signal is occupying about 6 kilohertz either side of the carrier. Just a little bit more than an AM signal would for the same sort of... I can see you've turned down the deviation. Oh, right. Okay. Sorry, I shouldn't be so amused. I don't know whether you picked it up, Steve, but Dave, in that replay towards the end, he was saying, you say what you like on this thing and somebody knocks on your door after midnight. He was referring to your department.
I think he was unnecessarily worried for a long time, Chris.
Well, he went through one court case, but that was a long time ago. That was Christmas of 1975, and they really were goading the department with that. And a certain ABC news and weather reader of later period was one of the announcers on the questionable broadcast, which was done, I think, at midnight on Christmas night. And the RIs really didn't like to be called out.
No.
So
I've gone back to AM. I prefer AM, having now heard both. I prefer the AM. It's a lot nicer to listen to on a DX SDR, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Hello?
Yeah. Hello? Yeah. Hello? Yeah. Hello? Yeah. Hello?
Yeah, and you can tell by it the fact that it can bear a lot more cycles before it descends into distorted mess. I'd just be curious as to what sound sideband should have for the same power. I think it's a 9 dB sig-to-noise ratio improvement, but the trouble is most rigs taper off below 300 hertz and above 3K, so that kind of mitigates against it. Although if I had a Hermes light, that would be a really interesting experiment. A Hermes light and a decent linear amplifier. What do you reckon, Matty? Are you still with us? 3AML.
Oh, yep. No, I am still about. I'm actually listening on 160 locally on a bit of a wet string.
Oh, you're listening direct, are you, Matt?
Yes. And I actually reckon the FM sounded better, but only because it's I forget what the term is. They got rid of all the background and the little bit of interference I have here.
Yeah.
Really overwhelmed it.
Anyway, without further ado, what I should do is ask Steve, how did your lecture go up in Cairns, you lucky bastard?
It went well, thank you, Chris. I think I mentioned last weekend that I suffer a bit of anxiety when it comes to public speaking. I don't naturally perform well, and I need to script what I say and rehearse it many, many times until I can almost speak it automatically and just look down every now and then to the speech to kind of keep me on track. So I rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed to the family and to friends, and I got a friend of mine on MS Teams and did a live online over the internet talk. And on the day, Chris, I thought I did pretty well. I was in front of about 200 scientists from all over the world, and this is part of the issue because for me, I'm talking to a highly educated audience, and they're going to ask me some pretty well-considered questions, and I don't know what they're going to ask.
Daniel in the lion's den.
That's right. So you can imagine the angst. What are they going to ask me? So I did my talk, and that was all fine. And a colleague of mine that I was with recorded it and took photos, and I think I put a couple up online, which you might have seen. And I was asked a couple of questions. The most technical one that I was asked was, when you measure this radiation, why do you only measure at 1.5 metres off the ground? Why don't you do spatial measurements? And that means that you're measuring the field at a particular height, but to be more accurate, it should actually be spatially averaged, and there should be 3 or 4 measurements made, anything from about 600 millimetres off the ground to maybe 3 metres.
Okay.
Anyway, look, that's all very well and good, but and I knew the answer. The standard actually allows for both. The standard allows for a 1.5 metre measurement doing full body exposure method. But someone that was going to do a more accurate compliance assessment may choose to use a spatial averaging approach, which is also fine, and both of them are actually documented in the relevant measurement standard. So I was able to say, look, our measurement program is basically to provide public assurance rather than compliance assessment. A compliance assessment needs to be done by an accredited NATA accredited assessor. We're not actually accredited to do that. So what we do is we do a measurement that will provide assurance, and if we see something that doesn't make sense, i.e. something a little bit high, we would... I'll go back to where we will engage an accredited assessor who may choose to use spatial averaging measurements. And everyone thought, well, that's a good answer. So I got a bit of positive feedback, Chris. The participants at BioEM were advised that if they wanted to receive a copy of any of the presenters' talks, they would need to reach out to them individually via email and request it. I got 3 of them. So
good.
2 scientists. One was a PhD from the University of Ghent in Belgium.
Oh.
And he said, we do similar measurements over here in Europe. I'd love to get a copy of your presentation because you guys are measuring beamformed transmissions at 5G. We'd love to know how to do it. Your idea looks fantastic. Can you send me your presentation? So that was a nice bit of positive feedback for me, Chris.
With the transmitters, is it like conventional phone towers with a trough radiator, or what goes on there?
Sorry, what was the question again?
With the transmitting side of what you're measuring, are they using trough radiators as they do, or they seem to do, with standard mobile phone towers, or is it some different technology?
Trough radiators?
Yeah, I don't know whether they're called that in proper terms, but it's long, narrow, like a thing that looks like a trough with a series of dipoles inside it. I understood that was, I might be right out of date with that, but that was the...
So you're talking about a multi-element array or stacked array within a...
With a metal...
Within a trough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Similar, Chris, yeah, similar. At the higher frequencies, the antennas are probably actually small etched elements on a PCB. Many groups of them. They're called MIMO antennas, MIMO, multiple in, multiple out. And they are usually on a PCB.
So they're phased up, I guess.
Yes, they are, and they're electrically connected in such a way that they can steer the beam by applying RF to different elements of the MIMO array, and that's how the beam forming works.
Okay.
So at frequencies higher than 3.5 gigahertz, they can make these antennas relatively small, and they will have dozens and dozens of radiating elements on or within the trough, if you like.
Yep.
And they can steer the RF down to a resolution of about 6 degrees.
Ooh, that's pretty good.
At 3.5 gigahertz. And even more impressive is when they use this technology for millimeter wave, or 26 gigahertz, where they have many times more radiating elements within the trough, and they can steer the beam down to a resolution of less than 1 degree.
Does it scan for the mobile phone and then...
It does. It tracks the location of the handset and follows it.
We're under surveillance.
Very, very efficient use of RF. And this was part of the reason we went to measure this stuff, because the telcos started talking about beam forming, and people start thinking about, you're pointing RF at me like a spot red laser. You're going to burn a hole in my head with this stuff. and look, in theory, the concept is right. But by doing that, by broadcasting a dedicated beam to service one user, you imagine if I was transmitting to you, you're in East Burwood, I'm in Ringwood North, I'm actually broadcasting my signal to you in 360 degrees in every direction.
Yep.
If I focused it on you and no one else, I could reduce my power by 20 dB, and you would hear me just as well, and I wouldn't be wasting energy in directions where no one else was interested in what I was saying. So beamforming allows for more efficient transmitted power usage, but also reuse. So I can transmit a signal to Matty, who's in the other direction, on the same frequency and not interfere with you, because he's out of, in a different direction, and the RF is not going to be, yours and his RF are not going to cross paths. So it's a fantastic concept. Bit like a light.
Yeah, interesting. So that opens up all sorts of possibilities for
Steve, I had no idea that it was so high pressured what you're doing here. Was me thinking that you were sitting on the beach with one of those soft drinks with a little umbrella in it, just having a wonderful time, counting the cane toads. But as for the burning a hole in your head with the RF, wait till the conspiracy theorists get a hold of that. And by the way, you're peaking 10 over 9 on the Hunter Valley SDR and sounding good.
Thanks, Pete. No, I was sitting on the beach having a glorious time. I think I sent you a photo, Pete. I sat down with my EME measurement device at Palm Cove under a palm tree, measuring a site across the street, and I looked up to my left and I saw this sign that said, "Beware of crocodiles." And my colleague said, "That's a bit of a worry." I said, well, I've been out doing this before and I've had people come up to me and ask me what I'm doing, and actually I've had people try and steal my kit. And I said, there'll be trouble if one of these crocodiles comes up and tries to pinch my EME measurement device. There'll be lots of trouble.
You can always beam microwaves at it and get it to drop.
Right.
Imagine trying to explain that to the department. I lost my desk gear because a crocodile ate it.
Yes, the insurance money might not be forthcoming. Oh dear. Yeah, interesting. You didn't get, I suppose the entry fee for such a confab would be such that the New Age woo people would be shut out of it.
Well, it was an industry function, Chris. I think I only paid, well, I didn't, but my employer paid for 1 day for me to be there, which was €500.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they're a racket, those things.
Yeah, so I think the weekly ticket, which included a few other things like a gala dinner, was about €1,500. So, yes, not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah, when I did the talks in California and Utah, I was actually sponsored to the extent of the entry fee for my sessions, and I think it was something like, this is 15 years ago, it was something like $500 Australian per day. It included, admission to the Marriott in San Jose, but not very much more. So those confabs really are a money-making exercise for somebody. Although I expect that the cost of running them is fairly high as well, administration as well.
Yes, I think they would have ideally liked to have had more people there, and I believe that Cairns was chosen as a way to attract the Europeans who would want to go to Melbourne in winter, right? So, but the venue was lovely, and there was the option for those that were travelling to extend their stay and do some exploring, Barrier Reef or up in the Daintree. They were promoting a bit of that as well.
Oh, those poor hard-working types.
Yes, absolutely. No, it was a really good. Look, I only saw 2 days of it. It was there for 5. I saw 2. But there was some really interesting talks. On the day that I spoke, I attended a talk, and a lot of it is the bioscience around, what is the interaction between RF and the human body, and not necessarily just RF, but electromagnetic radiation at any frequency. Yep. And so there were studies. There was this talk that I went to. I'll just reset the radio. Around the measurement, people that suffer from hypersensitivity to RF, and a lot of people believe that they actually are sensitive to RF. One way to potentially measure this is to measure the level of cortisol in the body, because cortisol is the stress hormone, and people with hypersensitivity often, have elevated levels of cortisol in their body. So there were some independent tests done early this year at the University of Wollongong, where they subjected people to RF and measured cortisol before and after the exposure to see whether, some people through the elevation of heat, because RF will heat the body to some degree, even if it's only a small amount, whether that actually created higher levels of cortisol. And no, they didn't find any connection between exposure to RF and cortisol levels in the body. But fascinating ways to try and sort of scientifically connect RF exposure to stress.
Yeah.
It's there's a lot of work being done to try and understand this hypersensitivity scenario, which some people believe is real.
I've known a lot of broadcast engineers who've reached 100 years old, so it doesn't seem to have a great deal of effect on longevity, at least at medium frequency.
When I started working with RF professionally, I was in my mid-20s and was around RF a lot in the construction of the 3G and 2G and 3G networks in Australia, building and around RF. And my first 3 children were girls. And when I stopped working directly with RF and was more behind a desk, we had a boy. So I'm not the only one that it happened to. Most of my colleagues that I was working with, we all had girls until we stopped working with RF.
Interesting thing on that point, Steve and Chris, radiographers. I remember talking to one when I was nursing who said that it was a similar thing, even though there are all sorts of measures to avoid radiation, like standing behind LED screens and the like, but girls were prominent in the research. Now, another thing to do with suburban train drivers' employees, given that we're only on 1500 DC as opposed to, say, interstate, where a lot of it is 25 kV AC, might be more significant, but a test was done on rail employees here in the 90s, and they came up with drivers were the most common cause of death was either cancer or heart attack, but suburban guards were living forever. So in other words, they decided that it was stress and not any EMF effects that were causing the figures.
That's interesting, Pete. That is very interesting. I'm sure that, if you have a fear of something, and it causes you anxiety, for me it's public speaking. I spent 2 weeks prior to going to Cairns last week losing sleep, fearful of stuffing up my talk. And logically, my wife would say, look, you know this stuff, and I do. I know it intimately. But knowing it and being able to stand up and tell someone about it with authority and confidence, that's something that I just couldn't believe. Well,
you have no trouble talking to us now.
No, but I can have a conversation with someone. But to get up and speak it is so what I'm saying is the stress, the psychological angst that it caused me was horrific. And it was just a 10-minute talk. You know what I mean?
Oh, Steve, if you'd asked us nicely, either Chris or I would have delivered the speech for you. Ha ha.
I'm sure you would have done a sensational job, either of you.
Get the trip to Cairns.
Well, to be able to sit on the beach drinking pina coladas, yeah.
And being eaten by alligators, yeah. Oh dear, what you blokes will do. Yes, I've never seen any evidence of your stress. Well, I mean, I saw you give that lecture on the problems that the department had back in that presentation you gave at Rosebud about, what was it, 8 years ago, something like that, Steve?
Yeah, I think think that was 2018, Chris. Back in the day when my manager was all over giving talks at amateur club meetings, he thought that was fantastic and it was great. But that's all changed now. They don't like that anymore, which is such a shame.
Why is that? Do they?
Oh, look, it's probably got to do with a little bit to do with some of the friction going on within the what can I say, the two authorities, the volunteer groups, and their attitude towards the regulator, their attitude towards certain changes that have come about in recent years, class licensing and a few other things like that, the attitude towards the assessor arrangements that we had with Tasmania, all of those things. There was a lot of stuff that went on, and I think,
they see them as okay. I'll give you an example. When I was at the museum, I was assistant curator of electronics, and my job was to act as the interstice between the Wireless Institute's station in the museum and the museum people above me, and dealing with some individual amateurs from the organisation concerned was considered to be a headache. Was fairly demanding situation, and as a result of that, when they moved the museum from Swanson Street, which is now the wholly owned by the State Library, to the old exhibition building. Well, half of the museum went to the old exhibition building, the other half went to Spotswood as Science Works, and the Institute was not invited to follow them over. They were dealing with, probably just because not the organisation, but the people they were dealing with were considered difficult. And I certainly ran into some of that difficulty personally. There was quite a bit of friction between me and the Institute for a while. And these days, I have a problem with the Institute and with RASA, because I'm one of the few people in ham radio that does not want to see an increase in the power limits for amateur radio without due cause. I say keep it at 400 watts, because there is no way I would want somebody running 2 kilowatts within 10 metres of me next door.
Well, there's a very good reason why it's 400 watts PEP. And just to clarify, 400 watts PEP is, in terms of risk, it's equivalent to 100 watts CW.
Yep.
And it's hard to do much damage with 100 watts CW.
You might burn yourself on the antenna connectors.
You might do. You could electrocute yourself, absolutely, but it's pretty hard to radiate someone. That's not the case with 1,000 watts. And with 1,000 watts, there is a point that radiation can exceed the maximum allowable by the standard if you're close to the radiator. And so legally there's a requirement to have done an assessment of the power and the exposure, and to hold those records and update them whenever a change occurs to the station.
And I would imagine that they're more lenient with people who go for low population density areas.
Yep. So, as a general rule, and look, there's some wonderful calculators online now. The RSGB have a really good one, which has been put up on WIA's website, where you can emulate a station, and graphically it will draw it for you and show you where the safe areas are. But you would be surprised, like I can run here 400 watts on 2 metres with a high gain Yagi and exceed the public exposure by about 3 times in my backyard.
Hopefully not in anybody else's backyard.
That's right. So look, you know what I mean? And that's just by using a high gain Yagi. Even worse on 23 centimetres, Chris, with even more gain.
Yeah.
So HF is a little bit more difficult to do that because it's harder to get those sorts of gains.
Yeah.
But nevertheless...
surely the body itself being only 2 metres long would be less likely to absorb much radiation if the frequency's lower.
That's right. The frequency that the human body absorbs mostly is a wavelength of about 3 to 4 metres because it's twice the height of the human body. You're a half-wave dipole when you stand up, 1.8 metres tall. So, VHF is your enemy in terms of what your body will absorb. But again, you need to be in front of a very, very high-powered transmitter or a high-gain antenna arrangement to be at risk.
Yep.
When you get up to UHF and above, the RF will not absorb as much.
Really?
Typically only penetrate the outer layers of the skin. Or into your ear. If you're, getting up into the gigahertz range, your ear can become a bit of a waveguide, and that can cause you some inner ear issues if you happen to get in front of a very big field. There are all sorts of physical issues that start to happen at different frequencies. It's fascinating stuff. One of the talks this week or last week was looking at the effects of millimetre waves, so 20 to 30 gigahertz, on the cochlea in the ear, because the ear can become a waveguide.
Yep.
And the inner ear is more at risk than the outer because of the waveguide arrangements of the ear. So but I think it's possible there might be a high power situation for us, but it will require different licensing. It won't be a class license because the high power will need to be specific to a station, and it will be subject to assessment and record keeping, and the operator knowing how to be compliant. And this was the reason why the trials back in 2010 or whenever it was, when there was a high power trial, why it never got up, because there was a lack of understanding of safety. And until that can be overcome, I don't think we'll see increases to high power. So someone that eventually gets a high power license will need to demonstrate competency, and that probably be through an assessment of their skills, their knowledge, and then them being able to provide records and prove that they've either measured or modelled their station so that they're not going to radiate their neighbours.
Right.
I wonder how that would affect some of the people that we strongly suspect are already running something like 2 kW. Anyway, Chris, I don't care what you say. I'm not dropping my power below 2 kilowatts, all right?
Yes, just make sure you have enough D-sized torch cells in it to generate that much.
Yeah, that's right. Otherwise, in my dreams.
Nuclear-powered D-sized torch cells.
I'm very fortunate to be able to access some very, very sophisticated tools to measure my station, and I have done so with a 400-watt transmitter on multiple bands, and I'm very confident that I'm not going to hurt anyone on HF, but I know that if I run 23 centimetres and talk to Dave down in Tasmania, it's nice that I'm pointing down the hill rather than up the hill.
Oh, okay, yes.
Because I would feel very uncomfortable pointing northeast at my neighbour, which is probably at a similar height to my antenna.
You don't hate him enough.
It would not be good.
So now I know why my neck hairs have been burning when Steve has been talking to Dave in VK7.
I didn't realise that 2 metres was the worst of the bands.
Because it's a combination of Well, the fact that I can run a bit of power there, and the gain. I've got a very, very high gain antenna on 2 metres, which the danger is in the gain of the antenna.
Mm.
You know, I've got probably 10 dB more gain on 2 metres than I do on HF.
Yep.
And if you add 10 dB to 400 watts, that's significant.
Well, I'm running FM, and the vertical antenna I'm using, the X520, is rated at 8.3 dBi, I think, for 2 metres. It's taking all the stuff down from high-angle radiation and pointing it at the horizon, basically. I was thinking of getting an FM amplifier to bring the power up to the maximum, but it sounds like it's not worth it from the point of view of risk. I'm currently running 50 watts or thereabouts through the diplexer, and if I run higher power, I'll have to get a new diplexer. This one is rated at 50 watts, and it feels a little warm at the end of the night.
Yeah, I think you'll be safe. The antenna you've got too, I think it's probably rated at no more than about 120 watts as well. If it's the diamond, I'm thinking it is.
Mm.
Those antennas don't like more than about 120 watts. They have a series capacitor in them.
This one that I'm using is not a 3-band antenna, it's 2, and it's rated at 200 watts continuous. Okay. So it's a little bit higher than the X7000, which is also used for 23 SEMS.
Well, silly confession time. The other day when I was changing the bracket on my 23 centimetre, that's only an 18 element beam, I saw a warning sign on it. Thought, oh, is that to do with the RF? And I just went and had another look at it, and no, it's don't touch power lines with it.
Mm. Right. It's a case of getting to hundreds of kilowatts, but flowing through you, not through the RF output. Mm.
It's just that I remembered, as we were talking about it now, remembered seeing that warning danger sign on the antenna. So as I said, I went and had a look, and no, it's not warning about RF. But there you go. Interesting subject. Steve, I've been lapping up everything you have to say on the subject. Brilliant.
Mm.
It's a fascinating topic. And look, I think there is a place for high power, but it needs to be done with a level of competency to protect the amateur and also his family and neighbours.
Mm.
And if the person understands the risk and can demonstrate their understanding and then apply, measures to protect, it'll be height, and you don't just have to go out and spend a lot of money on a measurement kit. There are some really good prediction tools around now that can tell you what to expect, and they're usually conservative, so the reality is that you probably have less than what the tool is predicting. But it's understanding those things and being able to be sensible with it. And this is probably where, dare I say it, most amateurs will fall down.
Mm-hmm. The only person I know who got a significant permit for higher power, he's not alive anymore. I'm just trying to think of his name. He was based up near Albury, and he was an enthusiast of EME, Earth-Moon communication. And somehow from the army he managed to acquire, I think it was a 15 or 20 metre dish, really big thing, steerable, with which he could point a lot of 70 centimetre power at the moon and communicate with the Yanks where the moon was suitably placed. And I think it was 1500 watts that he was given. But he was right out in the bush, and as he submitted to the department, with a dish like that on the ground, you were inherently shielded by the dish. So I don't think there was very much worry there. But that's 25 years ago, something like that. 3UM.
Yeah, that was Doug. Now, Doug
MacArthur.
Doug MacArthur. Doug actually came up with the first bit of software to predict and measure.
Mm-hmm.
Doug, VK3AML's EME prediction software is online and still used, and the department will accept measurements or results or predictions using Doug's calculator. It's a known and accepted and respected calculator, but it does require knowledge to be able to use it properly. But yeah, I've assessed people's application for high power using the calculator.
Yeah, he was a guy who knew what he was doing, and you
believe he had an EME station. Did he live up somewhere near Mansfield?
When I first struck him, I don't mean hit him, I mean when I first came across him, he had just lost everything he had in the Darwin cyclone in 1975. He was quite safe. I think he was away from home at the time, but he was in Darwin. He was well known, VK8KK, as a pioneer of slow scan television in the days when it was all long persistence phosphor 120 line scan stuff. You had to be really keen to be an SSTV in the mid 70s. Then he lost everything in the Christmas 1975 Cyclone Tracy, and I think he moved down either to Adelaide or Melbourne. He was here for a while. He was involved heavily with the EMDRC. In fact, I went to a meeting of the EMDRC, for which I did a report for Amateur Radio News. I still have the tape somewhere, where he, with the late 3LM, who was, I'll think of his name in a minute, known as Mr. Slowscan, the two of them imported the first storage SSTV receiver that could read out onto a standard black and white television set, which was a huge step forward from the old P7 radar phosphor screens they'd been using earlier. And they did a demo of that at Muralbach Technical School, I think it was, for the EMDRC when they were out there having their meetings. But then he moved, I think in the 90s, he moved up somewhere near, northeast somewhere near
Mansfield.
It was at Lansfield. I thought it was further out than that. But anyway, I might be wrong. And the last time I saw him was at the 2005 Gips Tech, where I did a paper on modulated light communication. He was doing a thing about, I think it was specifically about getting a high power permit. And he emphasised to everybody in the audience that, particularly with VHF and UHF, that higher powers were dangerous and shouldn't be toyed with lightly.
Sounds like he was the one I should have gone to see to fulfil my bucket list ambition to hear my voice come back from the moon.
I think he had achieved that on a number of occasions, but to do it you need high power and a lot of directivity. And of course with an ex-Army or ex-Air Force dish, which he had a lot of antenna gain. Oh boy, did he have a lot of antenna gain.
Quite the same thing, but this morning I was listening to the recordings, the radar recordings of Apollo 15 and 16 landing on the moon. Interesting, as an aside, 15, it's all matter of fact, oh yeah, we're there, we've landed. Yeah. Apollo 16, Charlie Dew gets a bit excited, oh wow, and you can tell he's rather thrilled. By the way, he's the same bloke who said, because you've heard his voice before, he was Capcom for Apollo 11, so it's Eagle, we copy you down. You got a bunch of guys here about to turn blue. We're breathing
again. Yes, I remember that.
A lot. But anyway, the point I was going to make with that was that in Apollo 16 they damaged the S-band dish. So they had to be very careful rotating the lunar module back to Earth so they could be heard.
God. Imagine doing that with no atmosphere. Dear, oh dear. Anyway, it is 9 minutes past 12. Do you want to push on, or should we start?
Chris, thank you for coming up and doing your transmissions. I really enjoy them, Chris, and that's why I've decided to kind of put them to 160. I feel nostalgic doing so, and I think there'll be people that will be listening to these late night sessions and the content that you put to air before we chat at 11, Chris. So please keep doing it. I think it just adds a wonderful component to the hobby, and I know that there are people that poo-poo it and have their views, but who cares? You know, there's so much value in it, Chris. The nostalgic value, the history. I really enjoy it. So
after 60 years, I've given up being worried about anybody who poo-poos anything.
Yeah, well, they can go to buggery.
Yeah, when you retire, you don't have to please anybody but yourself anymore, within the limits of the law, of course. To those people, I give the proverbial finger.
And from me, thank you to both of you.
Well, the great thing about working crossband is if there's any problem with lower power stations or stations that are further away on 70 SEMS, I'm in a fairly high position. The diplexer doesn't have very much loss, and the antenna is fairly high gain. So if there's any problem with communication within the group, I'm the backup. Oh, and there's my wife. I think she's... Just hang on a sec. This'll be something. Hello? I haven't finished quite yet. Can you wait a minute? Okay. Ooh, she hung up.
Are you in trouble?
That was the curfew brigade.
Did she want you 5 minutes ago, did she?
Something like that. I will have to go, fellas. My apologies. Look, do you want me to leave the transmitter on for a few minutes while I help her?
I'm done. I must head off. I'm actually going for a bike ride tomorrow morning with some friends. I'm meeting at 9 o'clock in Templestowe. So I'll head off as well. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Maddie. It's been a pleasure. And I thoroughly enjoy this, and even if I'm not transmitting and if I'm listening, which I sometimes do from the other room, I thoroughly enjoy it. So thank you, Chris. Thank you, Pete. Thanks, Maddie. This is VK3 Zulu Hotel.
Thanks so much.
Well,
really
Steve,
appreciate
just
it.
before you go, any plans for the ARRL field day tomorrow?
Yes, look, I know Sean will be out in his... up at the cemetery in, I think it's Learmont, north of Ballarat. He'll be sitting up there. He rang me tonight to tell me he had organised himself for 40, 20 and 15 metres. I will come in after lunch, I think, when I get back from a bike ride and chase a bit of DX. I'll track Sean down and banter with him a little bit. So, yes, my plan is to have a bit of fun. Nothing too serious. Pete, what about yourself?
Oh, well, I have to wait till 8 minutes past 3, exactly when the QRM here stops, because I've got strength 9 on all bands, and it just dies every day at 8 minutes past 3. I'll be at it for sure, and I'll try and catch the Kilo Meister as well. Anyway, good hunting for that. I know last year it was a lot of fun, and I gained a couple of parks on the air as a result of it.
Fantastic. Yeah, well, hopefully there's a bit of action there, and I believe... because it's an American... Pete, you might be able to help me understand the rules, but I think it's an American-based contest, so it's all about internal contacts mostly to do with Americans, isn't it? And there are some bonuses for the DX, but it's mostly going to be US working US. Is that right?
Oh, it's US working the world.
Oh, is it? Okay, all right. Well, that's great. Oh, I'll definitely be listening. I would like to focus on 10 metres, but I have a feeling by the time I get back after lunch, I probably would have missed my opportunity to work into the US on 10. So it might be 15 and 40, I think, for me.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened to 10. I've not been hearing Europe in the afternoons at all. I'll tell you what is solid though. The beacon at Darwin, 8 VF, is always strong all day. Plus VK6 are coming in 9 plus virtually all day on 10 metres. And as I said earlier, I made a contact with somebody on. They heard me by backscatter, but I heard them from an SDR and VK6.
Fantastic. Well, that's excellent. I've been having some success on 12, I must say, in the mornings, and voice, not dark side. Voice on SSB 12 metres long path Europe. There's been some short openings, and I was put onto it by Paul IK0ETA, and we worked on 15 metres about a week ago in the mornings, and he said, can we go up to 12? I think we can do this on 12. And sure enough, we did, and it was actually probably better on 24 than it was on 21. So that's been interesting. The long path into Europe on 12 metres at about 9 o'clock in the morning, our time.
Oh, I do like the sound of that. I haven't worked Europe on 12 metres, long or short path, probably in about 9 to 12 months. The only thing I seem to get on 12 is JA. And because it's 12 metres, I don't mind it. I think at 10 or 15 it starts to get a bit ordinary. Anyway, sounds good, Steve.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Maddie. I know Chris needs to go, so I'll let you sign off, Chris, and thank you for doing it, and it's been a pleasure, and I'm glad the 160 metre broadcasts have been successful. I've enjoyed it very much. VK3 Zulu Hotel.
Yeah, good stuff. Anyway, I better go and see what my wife wants, and we'll probably speak Maddie and Peter in 23 hours or thereabouts. This is VK3 Alpha Mike Lima in Burwood East, running 50 watts into a duplex, listening on 439225. As always, I will listen on 147.475 briefly before pulling the big switch. VK3 Alpha Mike Lima now.
Yeah,
clear.
and thanks, Chris. VK3 ACZ clear.
Okay, all the best.
Thank you for the broadcast.
Information. This is VK3VJS. Doug MacArthur lived at Murrindindi on the Melbourne Highway, halfway between Yarragon and Yea. Good morning.
Okay, Murrindindi was where apparently Doug MacArthur lived, according to Jeff. Anyway, fellas, I'm off. VK3 Alpha Mike Lima clear.
Have a good one, Chris. VK3AML clear.
You are actually stronger on 2 than on 70, but that's not surprising, Matty.
Yes, no, 2 bands a little bit better. Have a good night.
All the best.
Oh, Matty, you're full scale with me on 2 metres. How about that?
Really? Well, I mean, that's interesting. You're not to me, though.
Oh, somebody's got to let this